Good evening and welcome to our program here on Inside Bicol. I'm so glad because tonight my guest is a known historian. He studied in the Ateneo de Manila, took up his PhD in UP, and did a lot of research, which I'm sure that a lot of us, especially Bicolanos, would be interested to know. Alam mo ni si Danny, sarong pure-blooded Bicolano. And talagang ang passion niya is about history. I know that a lot of people would ask him about the history of, Bicol, also of the Philippines. And I'm so glad that he's giving me this opportunity. Let me now introduce my guest for tonight, Professor Danny Gerona.
Good evening, Fred. Good evening to the audience of this program. And I am happy for the invitation given to me by Fred so that I can also share whatever useful knowledge for the Bicolanos in general.
Okay. You know, Danny, we are being watched also by Bicolanos overseas because this program is being uploaded on the internet. And I noticed a lot of Bicolanos staying overseas would normally watch what's happening here and also, see for themselves, especially in some of my guests who are familiar. Because I know that you're very much familiar
Yeah.
with them. So, but for those non-Bicolanos, Danny, tell us more about yourself. Who is Danny Hiron?
Yeah, thank you, Fred, for giving me the chance to share whoever I am to the public. I did my AB in philosophy at the Ateneo, then my MA. In fact, some of the prominent personalities in the village were my classmates. Joey Salceda and Pinoy,
Oh,
President
really?
Pinoy, yeah, we
Okay.
were classmates. And at one time, because I was there in Manila, I was based in Manila, at UP, Ateneo. I was hired at one time as one of the speech writers of a vice president and later on president. But because I got an opportunity to specialize on history, to go to Europe, so I left the job and did my first passion, my history. So I did much of my work on Spanish colonial history. That's the reason why I became quite familiar with the Spanish records because I spent most of my work in the Spanish archives in Sevilla, in the Archivo General de Indias, in Salamanca, in Toledo, wherever there are documents about the Philippines. For almost 8 times, I have to go back and comb these archives just to bring them over to the Philippines because the reason much of what we have here in the Philippines and particularly in Bicol were simply histories taken from oral accounts. And among professional historians, it counts very, very little ang value sa ganyang ano. So I have to go to the archival records just to set the record straight and therefore to put a definitive mark on our history. So that's what I did. And one of my major works, aside from the fact that I have written about 30 books, read on Bicol, the Philippines, I did one of the major, I would say, landmark in my work is the recently published work on Magellan. We launched that at the Embajada, the Filipinas in Eresma in Madrid, and it became a sensation not only among the Filipinos but even Spaniards. When I launched it, there were a number of Spaniards, intellectuals, professors at the Universidad Complutense de Madrid, and some of the members of the consular office in Madrid attended my lecture and my launching. And today, it has already circulated around the world. And for that reason, somebody got hold of my book and invited me to become a member of an international committee. They call it in Spain, Comité Internacional de Sevilla 2022. The Sevilla 2022, Fred, is coordinating body which spearheads the celebration of the Magellan expedition throughout the world. So, because of the fact that the Philippines is part of that, geography of Magellan's expedition, so it's important on the part of the Philippines that I also became part of that. That's why we are talking with the Spanish Embassy and the Philippine Embassy, the National Historical Commission, to also create a body that will also pave the way for the celebration of the Magellan expedition. But of course, the focus of the Sevilla 2022 is of course the celebration in Spain. That's why they put it 2022,
I see.
not 2021, which is the discovery of the Philippines, but 2022 because it was there when the remnants of the Magellan expedition had returned in September of 2022, 1522 to Seville. That's why Sevilla 2022 because it was on the year 1522 that it returned to Seville.
Okay.
And therefore they honored Magellan because of this one of the major developments in world history was of course the circumnavigation of the world. Magellan's expedition provided an empirical evidence that the early scientists thought that the world is really round.
Okay. Now, Danny, I envy you because you were given the chance to look into this mga manuscript, which was,
Yeah.
done long time ago. But I would suppose that you can speak and write Spanish because you will not understand
Yeah.
unless
Definitely, Fred.
go into that.
I understand. I speak Spanish, and of course, I read. There is some major, I think, contrary to popular belief, Fred. People thought that if you know Spanish, you can read the Spanish documents. No. That is the more difficult part, the reading aspect. You have to be familiar with what they call paleography. Paleography means old writing. The writing in 1500 Spanish is different from the writing in Spanish today. So if you know Spanish, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can do research because you have to study the system of writing before. Not only that, it's quite different from what we have today. Today we have typewritten, computer produce letters, but not before. They were in manuscript form, and the writing there, Fred, is not the kind of writing that we know today. It's very almost similar to Arabic.
Okay.
So you have to study in a way the script before, and not only that, you have to get into the nuances of the language because you have to remember you are dealing with 500 years time space time distance. So you have to be familiar with the words. Because if you look at the dictionary, you use the same words in 1500. It's quite different from the dictionary that you have today. So it's more of a difficult job doing a work on history because it does not only require the knowledge of the Spanish language, but also requires a knowledge of the system of writing and the nuances of the period.
I would suppose, ini-imagine kita nung binabasa mo siguro yun. Parang you were imagining yourself na you are there na doon sa nangyayari.
Yeah, precisely, Fred.
Ano yun, no?
Yeah, it's in a way nostalgic. So nostalgic, and at the same time, para bang you are engaged in the time travel. So whenever I open manuscripts, Fred, I seem to imagine Magellan standing before me. So I can have a picture of him. I can have a picture of the clothing, the environment at that time. So I am transported into a different realm of the existence. But of course, sabi nga ni Frank, it requires a lot of a patient job. You have to be familiar. You have to read a lot. You do not only read the Spanish documents. You have to be equipped with the world, with the informations about the world. So I have to read not only the documents. I have to read secondary sources, books about that particular period.
How are they able to save all of this? Paano nila what do you call that? Paano bang maintain yung mga...
Well, one thing, Fred, is they're very, very strict with the researchers. Unlike in the Philippines, you can go anytime you want to go to the National Archives. In Spain, no. If you are a foreign researcher, you have to have a certification from your ambassador that you are a legitimate historian.
So you cannot just go there
You
and
cannot
open
just,
the book.
you cannot just go into and open the book. In fact, I brought with me my wife in the archives. He has an ID. She was given a permission, but there is a restriction. In the ID, it says you cannot touch the document. I'm the only one who can touch the document and read. So this is how they really value the documents. And you cannot just enter their thread. You have to. There is a scanner in the body. You enter the archives. They will look at your body, and so you cannot carry anything. You cannot even carry ball pen. You cannot. They would provide them for you. So that's how strict they are, and that's probably the reason why they were able to preserve the documents. And the documents, their friend. If you go, for example, at the Archivo General de Indias, that's the mecca of historians all over the world doing research on the Spanish Empire, you have to spend probably 10 years to read, to go over the documents in the Philippines. I've been there about 8 times, but I would say I have only scratched the surface of the documents even in the Bicol region. For example, there is there read about the so-called Sección Ecclesiastica, where you get to know all the documents about the first 4 dioceses in the Philippines, and the Naga documents there are so valuable, so much that I would say it would take years for me to really sift through the documents.
Right. Oh, I wish we can also do that in the Philippines, of keeping track of this, because it's a lot of information that will maganda yan.
Yeah, totoo yan, Fred. Totoo yan, Fred. Sa Pilipinas, even in the Philippines. Pero we do not, unfortunately, the archives here in the Philippines possess very, very little documents.
Yeah.
It only goes back to 1800. So if you wanted to do research on the 1600s, 1700s, you have to go, you have no other way to go but to go to Spain. But not so much in the Philippine National Archives. Because as I said, that we are so deficient in the records, and probably we have to remember that Manila suffered so much during the Second World War, and many of the documents perished during the war.
Okay. We will pause for a while. When we return, we shall continue with our discussion. Don't go, we will be back.